Today I'm going to show you how I like to build a tube front for an S13. The subject is this S13 coupe, pretty slick little car. Let me show you around a little bit here. This thing's a little different. It has a VH45 DE. It's not on there right now, but T, turbo. So this is a turbo VH45. And as you can see, the front end's already cut off of this. It used to have a full tube front end, but this car was in a bit of a drifting accident. And he brought this thing to me to fix it all up. And looks like he's prepped it pretty good. He chopped off the old stuff there, chopped off the rail there. But yeah, looking at this car further, super freaking clean. Already chopped the trunk up. I think he's gonna do a rear mounted radiator. He's got his fuel cell in there. Battery back here, pretty clean little bash bar in the back with a jack point. I love these wheels. 27? They look really tough. It's locked up right now. He's on his way with the keys and some stuff I need, but maybe I'll show you that later. The interior is very clean as well. But yeah, to get things started here, I need to chop off the remaining stuff here and smooth this plate out nice and clean. All of this looks pretty good. I might try to clean this up and cut it just a smidge straighter. We're gonna box this off, build some tubing off the front, do a lower core support to tie into these front A-arms, whatever you wanna call these, and then just do a really simple tube from the strut tower down to the rail. I'm just gonna cap this off and then weld straight to this. And then off the front, I'm gonna put a plate so that we can then build a front bash bar off the front of this car. And we got his Instant Gentleman front bumper here and also has his front fenders to mount up. Let's get started cleaning these pieces up here and getting those ready to start building off of. And of course, before we do any welding or cutting or anything, we're gonna disconnect the battery. And I wanna protect this pretty engine, so I'm gonna put this welding shirt over the important stuff. That ought to do it. Let's get to chopping. Okay, we've got everything chopped off and cleaned up. Everything's clean and ready to weld. Both sides here, looking nice. I just had to chop just a little bit off of there to make this completely straight up and down. And now I've got these little plates, and I'm just going to cap those over like that. All right, there we go. Now that we got it tacked on, I'm gonna go ahead and fully weld it out. All right, there's our first plate, fully welded out, looking pretty good. Now let's move on to this other side and get it knocked out. And voila, there it is. So now that we've got that squared away, I'm gonna take this 1.5 inch piece of square tubing and cut 4 total to length to stick out up to here, and that'll be the front legs of our frame rails. Here we got our 4 straight pieces, and how we're gonna do this is these two are going to be welded together, and then we will just stick these right onto the frame rail like so, and that'll give us a nice front piece here to tie our front bash bar to. And then this section underneath here, we're going to use this piece of tubing here to make our lower core support. All right, now we've got all of these welded together. They look pretty good. So now we can get these tossed on here. Okay, we're looking pretty good here. We got these front legs fully welded on here. This one's still kind of smoking just a little bit. I just finished welding it. But they look pretty good, nice and straight on with the frame rails. This one looks pretty fantastic as well. I'm pretty happy with that. So now with that, we can start mapping this out. And this is gonna kind of, this is very rough here, but this is gonna kind of stick on here. So I need to cut these bends here so they land flat on the bottom side of these legs here. And then I'll do some kickoffs off that tube so our tension rod mounts can have something to attach to. And then right in the smack center there, I'm gonna put a little jack point so he can jack the front of his car up from there. Okay, we got this all set up here. I chopped the ends off, kind of protrudes past, but that's no big deal. I can just hack that end off and cap it. This side here has just a little bit, but I can just weld that gap in. Got the level set up here to where the two match, and that's looking pretty good. I think that's gonna make the front of this pretty sturdy and look nice. Now, for where these tie in, I'm just gonna have to get some angle iron and, you know, drill holes in it for that, and then weld nuts to it. And then I'll just place those here, and that'll help me know where to land this. And I'll just weld directly to that, so that picks up on there pretty well. Okay, it's dark out now, but we're gonna keep trucking here. Like I said, we got this piece cut and ready to go. And I got me some 3/16 thick, 1.5" angle iron here. They're already marked and center punched. I just need to drill these out. All right, we've got our holes drilled, and I'm gonna cut these corners off so this looks a little cleaner. Okay, now that we've gotten our pieces drilled and shaped the way that we like, we need to weld these nuts to this plate. But before I do that, I'm gonna dip it in some of this phosphoric acid. Yeah, see?
This stuff contains phosphoric acid.
You can find this at this stuff at any Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that. But you only need a little bit. You submerge these in there and it'll pull all that zinc off, so these weld nicely onto here. Yeah, you can see it's already kind of working, bubbling up. Okay, as now you can see, all the zinc plating is off of these. These are ready to weld, like so. Okay, so before tack welding this lower portion onto the car, I went ahead and added this jack point to the center. It's a little easier to weld this off the car than on. So now that that's on there, we'll let this cool off a minute. I don't know if you can see, but it's still kind of hot. So once that cools off, we'll get this all mocked up on here. We've already got these bolted on and ready to go. And once that's on there, we can get it tacked and then fully welded on there. And then we'll be done with this lower portion, and we can move on to these tubes up here. All right, we are looking good. We got this thing stuck on here. It's looking nice and level, and I believe it's ready to tack. These will attach right on the back side of the tube there, and we'll make sure and put plenty of weld on that to attach that. And the jack point looks pretty good, so I think we're looking just fine. Dang, those came out pretty nice. Not a bad start. And there it is. It's hanging under its own strength, tension, whatever. All right, let's fully weld this thing out. All right, we're all finished welded up here. Came out really nice. On these ends here that we had that overhang, I just chopped that off flush with the end of the rail there. And then I flattened the piece out and just used it to cap the end. I think that looks pretty nice. All these welds came out pretty good. Everything looks pretty solid. Pretty happy with that. That'll work great. Jack point came out really good. It's just above the lowest point of the car, which looks like, you know, it's about 1/2 inch to 1 inch above the subframe. So yeah, as you can see, it's pitch black out right now. Makes it kind of hard to film, so we might be calling it for tonight. We'll get started bright and early. All right, it's the next morning, and it is colder than heck out here. It's like 32 degrees right now, but we're gonna dig back into this thing, start making some strut tower to frame rail attachments. And as you can see, we got this big old turbo right here directly kind of in the way. Now typically I'd like to just do like a quick little shoot straight to the frame rail, short and sweet, but since this turbo and all this exhaust stuff pushes all through this center area here, we need to come out and around, over, and then down. Yeah, so we got to figure out how exactly we're going to tackle that. So the old setup on this car had kind of what I was pointing out, and it went around the turbo and stuff really well. So I think I'm going to try to just like replicate that. I think that should be just fine. It worked then, so it should work now. But I'm really happy with what we got done last night. These rails came out really good. I was thinking this jack point was a little too low, but when the intercooler and stuff is on there, it just hangs below where the intercooler is. So it should make it to where when you roll the jack under there and it starts to catch on this, it catches on this before it starts to hit on the bottom of the intercooler. You can kind of see what I was talking about. Jack point comes down here to where once the bumper and everything is down at this level, it shouldn't hang down too low. I think I'm probably going to keep it like it is. Later on when I do the front bumper and make the front bar and everything, I'll double check that and make sure that we don't have any clearance issues. If I have to, I can just cut it and, you know, move it up higher. I'm only making kind of the foundation of the tube front for my friend Carlos here. He's a skilled fabricator. You know, he did all of this exhaust work and stuff. He's gonna do all the tabbing and stuff for mounts for the intercooler, which looks like that'll line out pretty well for a piece of round stock and a flat plate with some rib nuts maybe to hold the intercooler up. And when he does tabs for his headlights and all that good stuff, and he just wants a good structure for his front bumper to be able to hang off of. And I got something kind of trick for when I go to do the front bumper tying into the front rail here. Oh, and yesterday I didn't get to show you guys the inside of this car, but it's pretty sweet too. Got a nice suede wrap dash. What's he got? A Corbo seat. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Full interior, which is always the coolest. I mean, the back strip, but he's got a nice bulkhead. That looks cool. Dang, son, in an AccuSump. My guy knows the deal. Solid. Solid unit. Even has the freaking headliner. How many guys with drift cars are still rocking your headliner? Pass-through hydro. Long neck. Dang, his gauge setup is pretty cool too. Okay, let's get to work. I think we're starting to come up with a plan here. I've got this piece of straight tubing with a magnet holding it on there. Obviously it's way taller than we're going to end up running with. I think that we can figure out our height on this, which I'll run just a little high, and get this tacked in nice and plumb on the rail. And then I think I'm going to do just like a 15-degree bend, you know, like just like that. So kind of angled off of this, and you know, a straight shot, like a 90-degree cope to get that to land on here. Nothing good. And it'll shoot like directly over the turbo. There should be plenty of room for his oil feed. And looking here, there's plenty of room for his intake setup. I think from the front, that'll look just a little, you know, like a big 90 up here. Just kind of looks a little goofy, especially because this is 1.5-inch tubing. If we did all this in 1 inch, I might completely do a different setup, but this is a lot of weight on the front of this car, so we're gonna want a good amount of support, I think, especially with this long run to connect this tower. So I'm gonna kick a 15-degree bend, a straight piece of 1.5-inch tubing here, and we're gonna start eyeballing and measuring and figuring out how we're gonna end up looking here. Looks pretty cool. I think that'll look good. There we go. Something kind of like that. This is all just very crudely mocked up. I think that that will look pretty tough. You picture that from this side too. A chute coming down. I think that'll look pretty good. So I'm going to toss a quick notch on this end, and then we'll mark out, well, actually, first I need to get this actually cut to a decent length and tack it on the bottom, so that way I can get to tacking everything up here. But I don't know, pretty happy with that. That looks good. All right, so I got this forward tube here cut, bent, and then I just notched it. I use a portable bandsaw, and then I measure 12 and 6 o'clock. And with this one, this has a slight bit of a angle from here to here, so this top notch needs to be a little deeper than the bottom one, and you can kind of see from the side there. Chop it with the portable bandsaw, and then I clean it up with a flap disc, and fits right in. Looks good. Clean notch. No complaints. So let's see how it fits up on the car. All right, I got both of these uprights cut to length and plumb and tacked up to each rail. And I went ahead and tacked this side on. Really clean fit, man. Everything's looking fantastic. Really happy with this fitment. Just above the turbo. I also landed this like exactly where the old one was. So pretty happy with that. Now I just need to fabricate this side, get it tacked in, and then I can start working on this crossover piece, radiator support. Have to see how that's gonna line out. Hopefully kind of bend it out, run it plumb with that lower bar and put it back in. However it's gonna fit with the hood here, which is already some pretty decent clearance. Hopefully I can just kind of land up in here. Also probably throw some caps on here. So yeah, let's knock this side out. There she is. More of the same. Nice clean fitment there. Very happy with that. Looks really nice and symmetrical. I like it. And again, we landed in the same spot that the other tube did. All right, now we're going to move on to this tube across the front here. So here we go. Let's get this bad boy in here. All right, we got this front core support bar cut up and bent. Looks pretty good. Lands nicely on the top there. Now we just need to cut this excess off and cope this so it falls into place there. Okay, there's our upper core support. Looking mighty fine. That worked nicely. The front of this thing looks mean. Loving it. All right, now I just got to weld this all up and we can be pretty much done with this portion of the front end. Yeah, Carlos is here, by the way. Yo, we're laughing at how good this fits. We just did a test fit before I weld it, closing the hood, and she looks mighty nice. Ignore this because this was cut out from the previous two front, but dang, dude, looks good. So let's weld this thing out. So this little trick you may or may not know. A little bit of MAP gas, and then you just heat the metal up around where the weld's gonna be, and it's gonna draw out all that moisture and cook off any of the oils. Here, if you get close, you might be able to see it kind of flash off some of the moisture. Yeah. So that'll just make your welds a lot cleaner, come out nicer. Wire. We out to wire. Ran out of wire. Here we go. 030 MIG solid wire. All right, there we go, back in action. Let's finish this. All right, there it is. Fully welded out. Looking mighty fine. Pretty happy with all this. Looking very good. It's freaking cold outside, dude. But we moving, baby. Keep moving, you stay warm. So we're gonna move on to the next thing. And that's gonna be capping these here. And then we're gonna cap the fronts of these two legs for the frame rails here, and then I'll show you guys what we're gonna have in store next here for the sides. And just like that, we're completely done with the front structure here. Cap these off nice, all welded, looking good. This cap here, this cap here, everything's looking real clean. So now we're gonna move on to building the front bumper support, bash bar, crash bar, whatever you want to call it. And to do that, I'm going to try to make this mount as though it was a factory front crash bar. So as you probably may know, if you have a 240, you have a stud sticking out here, and then you have a threaded hole here. And when you slide the crash bar on, you can use this to land on, toss you a nut on that, and then stick your bolt through the end there. From there is your front crash bar. So to do that, I've got these plates to go on the end of the frame rails. And what I'll do is weld the back side of this so this bolt stays fixed to the plate. And then I'll weld this nut on the back side so it stays in place. And then what I'm gonna do is hold this up to the frame rail, mark the holes front and back there, and then I'm gonna drill a good size hole so this plate with the nut and bolt welded to the back of it will lay flush and flat on that rail. And then I'll weld all around this plate, fixing it to the frame rail. And once I've gotten both sides done, I'm going to take the other two plates that I have and I will make something that I can land the front crash bar on. So I'll have something like this, maybe a little bit longer. I'll weld that on there. So that's what that piece will look like. That'll go onto the side of the frame rail, and then I can land the tubing for the front crash bar off of this little piece right here. And it makes it to where we can take the nut and the bolt out, and then this will slide straight forward and off and be removable just like it is from factory. And then I'll show you guys how I like to bend up the front crash bar to kind of contour whatever fiberglass bumper you have. All right, we got our hardware soaking in acid, and now we're going to work on getting these welded up. All right, now we got these all whipped up, ready to be added on to the frame rail. So now I'm gonna center punch each one of these marks, drill some big holes out there. Okay, I've got my pilot holes drilled, and now I'm gonna make them bigger with this step bit to just a little bit bigger than that outer ring I drew in there. And hopefully those plates will slide right in there. Okay, here we are, holes drilled. Got our plate here. Let's see how it fits. Boom. Looks good. So now I'm just going to weld around the perimeter of this plate, and then I can stick the other plate on there, and then we'll be good to go. Don't forget your grounds. Boom. She's hot. Looks good. Let's do this other side, and then we can start working on the front bumper. Okay, we got both sides of the frame rail for the pickup for the front bumper all lined out. Everything's looking really good here. Now we can finally move on to making the front bumper. And to do that, I like to take, obviously you need your front bumper, and I'll take some sidewalk chalk and I flip the bumper over on its top, and then I lay it on the ground and I trace it out. And this just gets you started. I'm gonna make sure and find my center line on the bumper, mark that down as well, cut my piece of pipe to length, which we're going to use this piece of tubing right here, and then we'll bend it up with our little bender here. And I like to use this little cheater pipe. I just took a piece of tubing and I bent a 90 in it with the bender, and I marked where the beginning of the bend was, and I put a piece of duct tape on it, and then I found the end and did the same, so it's kind of universal. This thing is super handy. It makes building roll cages, bumpers, tube fronts, anything a lot easier. So I find center like so. I'll take this piece of tubing, get the center line lined up, and then I'll take my cheater pipe and I'll sit it directly on top. And as you can see, the way the green line from the sidewalk chalk on the ground runs, you just run this until you feel like that's where you want the first bend to begin. Make a mark, and you put your bend in it, and then after you got a bend, obviously the tubing will be kicked more that way. Then you line up again, do it again, so you get all the way around and the whole piece of tubing is bent. And after you get it kind of roughly bent up with the sidewalk chalk line, I'll then take the front bumper and I'll rest it kind of on top of here. Actually, once I first get my first couple bends, I sometimes just ditch the sidewalk chalk altogether and then just move over to the bumper. And this just kind of gets you going, and then you can take off with this. We will, once we get it fully kinked around there, we'll fit it up inside here and then clamp it, hold it in place where we like it so it's perfectly conformed to the front of the bumper. Then we can start fitting all the body panels up, get everything lined up, and move on to making the connections from the tube to our pickup points here on the frame rails. Okay, so you see I put a little 10-degree bend right in the center. So now, as you can see, that gives us a little more length of the line. Now we can find out where our next bend goes. We'll make a mark, figure out the angle of our bend, which looks like a 20-ish degree bend, maybe, probably less, and that'll shoot us out straight the rest of the way out the end, and then we'll figure out this last little kink here at the end. Here we are, about 15 degrees. That ought to do it. All right, it's coming along real good right now, contouring that line pretty well. Ideally, I would do this with a tubing roller so I could kind of match that arc a little better instead of doing these kinks. I've only got this bender, so this is what I got to work with. It's just as sturdy. It'll protect the front of this thing really well. Last two bends in the end to get these final kicks done, and then we can start figuring out attaching it to the car. Okay, here's our tubing all bent. We've got the front bar in the bumper skin clamped on there. It's pretty good, fits in there nice and tight. Now I need to put the front fenders on and get the front end all lined up, kind of mount this front bumper on here. This isn't the ideal way to do this. This is a Sylvia Instant Gentleman front bumper, and he runs a Sylvia hood with a 180SX front bumper with the little LED lights in the void there. So this isn't the front bumper he's going to be running. I typically don't like to try to make a bumper, or I don't like to make a bumper off of the body kit that's not going to actually be on the car, but Carlos is confident that it's going to work out, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to make it fit as best as I can. All right, we're looking pretty good here. We've got the whole front end mostly together. This bumper barely even fits these fenders, and none of these lines are quite perfect, but he said this is how it was, the way he's mounted it. I guess with these aftermarket fiberglass hoods, makes it kind of hard to get your front end perfectly dialed, but I've got the tubing centered on the car, and you know, from the top edge, it looks pretty good. Tried to level it out with these body lines here on the front fender. I might need to scooch it up just a smidge, but yeah, I think that'll probably work. It's starting to look like a car again, and it's getting really dark. But we're gonna press on. I wanna get this bad boy knocked out. Once I get everything completely finalized and I'm happy with it and it looks good, we will fill the gap between this piece and the front bumper. It's kind of tucked up underneath there. So I'm gonna use my pipe master, find out my notch, what it's gonna look like, where it lands on this piece of tubing here, cut out whatever length we need, and then I'll do this notch second. And we'll get it all tacked in. Then we can weld this bad boy, and that'll be pretty much it, I think, for the front end. And it looks pretty fantastic, I think. He'll be able to make, so this, again, this is just, I'm building just the foundation for Carlos. He's gonna finish the rest of it out at home. All the tabs and stuff for the fenders and the headlights that he's gonna run and the hood latches. All right, I got my little pipe master thing, and we line it up there, fit it up, and I think that's gonna fit pretty good. So I'm gonna get both these knocked out, mark it, cut it, and then we'll get measured for the straight notch. All right, it's all tacked in now, so let's go ahead and pull the front bumper off. Voila, there is our front crash bar. Looks freaking good, really good. Now I just need to weld it all out, and we can call this project finished. All right, there it is, full tube front and bash bar. Welds came out pretty good. Front bash bar is nice and removable. You just pull out the bolt there and take off the nut there on each side. Whole front will slip right off. Let's see, it's really satisfying to put a fiberglass bumper onto a nice solid bash bar that's custom fit to it. Should just clip right on. There it is. Slips right on there. Again, this isn't the right front bumper, so it doesn't want to sit perfectly with the fenders, but it's all leveled. Looks good. I think that'll work just fine. So yeah. Pops right off, nice and easy. Sweet. This thing's solid, man. Real solid. Looks good. All right, I'm gonna take a few pictures for a thumbnail, and I think that's gonna do it on this one. Pretty cool looking little tube front. Carlos is here, ready to get this thing loaded up on the trailer. All right, one more look with the fenders off. This looks fantastic. Very happy with this. Love it. What do you think, Carlos?
Man,
you happy with it?
I'm speechless, man.
Came out pretty good, huh?
Way better than it was, for sure.
Pretty stout.
You brought it back to life, man. Back to life.
Heck yeah. You ready to crash for another day? Hopefully it'll hold up better this time.
No.
Nah, no crash. Oh shoot. That's gonna do it for this one. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you're a little warmer than I am. It's freaking still super cold. It's temps dropping every minute now. Hopefully this gives you a few tips and tricks how to get your tube front squared away. And if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe for more. Maybe we can do some more of this in the future. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Let me know what you think. Listen to this thing. That's it. See ya.